Hey, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by uppercutchops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all natural, dry-aged USDA prime Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course the king of all those gigantic cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had, probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at uppercutchops.com. That's uppercutchops.com. Or give them a call. Find out what's for dinner at 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for uppercutchops.com. Yes! All right, a big welcome in everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates and independents from coast to coast. In addition to our friends watching at Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, and WOW Cable Television affiliates in select markets, as well as Hotel TV in over 500,000 rooms from coast to coast. And everybody on Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook, a big hello to you for sticking in there with us. Well, we had to start a live video, so this is actually being streamed as well on Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. So, folks, make sure you check out Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. You know, we think of patriotism. We like the idea of our good old national anthem. Everybody likes that. If you don't like it, you're un-American. Sorry, folks. It is what it is. And you certainly shouldn't boo. I don't care. You shouldn't be kneeling. You shouldn't be doing anything that you shouldn't be doing to disrespect the flag. And honestly, for all you people that are school teachers or whatever, trying to school people on U.S. history and all this other crap, if you don't know U.S. history beyond your perception of it, put it that way, or what certain institutions have spun your way, I guess that's really what we're talking about. So if you look at what's happening in the world today, you see that these United States of America are back on the upswing and things are going good again. Donald J. Trump is back in charge as he should be, and life is going to get back to normal and America will progress because that's what America does. So how about this? You know, there's this ongoing trade thing, this situation going on with Canada and Mexico and this country and that country and whatever. And you know, when we think about what's going on in America and we think about how we're trying to bring value back to the country as far as on the world stage, maybe a little bit more respect back where it belongs, we say, you know, there are some issues that we have had and some that say, you know, I don't know about what's going on in this place or that place, but what I can tell you is what's going on here in this country. It's a good thing, folks. It's a very good thing. And for people to go to a football game or go to a baseball, basketball game, a hockey game, whatever the hell it is. You know, you go to these games and you're supposed to root for your squad and you're patriotic and everything else. And so here, the Canadian teams in Major League Baseball and the National Hockey League, the National Basketball Association, we're respectful as Americans to the Canadian national anthem. We like that. Well, guess what? How about what happens when the fans at the Toronto Raptors basketball games, they continue this horrific trend of booing the U.S. national anthem at pro sporting events in Canada. What? What the hell's the matter with these people? Oh, yeah, you're booing now? Wait till the tariffs kick in, kid. This is how it's going to work. Now, this is from the Associated Press. Fans at Toronto Raptors games continues an emerging trend of booing the American national anthem at pro sporting events in Canada. And, of course, fans of the NBA's lone Canadian franchise booed the anthem after similar reactions broke out the day before at NHL games in Ottawa, Ontario, Calgary, and other locations after U.S. President Donald J. Trump made his threats of import tariffs on America's northern neighbor. Get over it, folks! That's right, get over it. Well, guess what? After initially cheering for the 15-year-old female singer, fans booed throughout, quote, the Star-Spangled Banner, close quote, performance. At the end, mixed boos and cheers could be heard from the crowd erupt in applause for the Canadian national anthem, O Canada. Now, you don't hear people booing O Canada in this country. People don't do that here. It's ridiculous. Oh, why? Because the Canadian leader, the Canadian leadership, everything is awful as we see it in the first place. They are really, really bad. Did I mention they were bad, if you know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway, so when we think about this, he's like, well, wait, why is this going on here? So even Patrick Kane, former Chicago Blackhawks great, now plays for Detroit. He said, quote, I mean, it's too bad, right? It is what it is. I guess you can maybe understand it from this side, but seems like it's a thing that's going to be around the league right now, close quote. And so that's what Patrick Kane said during a game where he plays for Detroit, and that was during an anthem when they were playing the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, that's ridiculous. So yeah, guess what? Trump says we as Americans are not going to be paying for everybody else's stuff. Everyone's going to pay their fair share, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. That's right. That's right. And so Trump declared an economic emergency in order to place taxes of 25% on imports from Canada and Mexico and 10% on imports from China. Good. Energy imported from Canada, including oil, natural gas, electricity, would be taxed at a rate of 10%. So be it. Justin Trudeau, get over yourself. So that guy and Mexico's president ordered retaliatory tariffs on goods from America in response. Yeah. How's that going to work out for you? Raptors forward Chris Boucher, a Canadian citizen, was asked if his team's win over the LA Clippers, whether he'd ever experienced something like that. And he said, quote, no. But have you ever seen us getting taxed like that? Close quote. Now, what I find interesting in this is, yeah, maybe they haven't experienced anything like that in the first place. But guess what? You're going to have to deal with it. And that's really all that's to it. Even Joseph Chua, a Toronto resident who was at the Raptors game, said he's going to be feeling the tariffs pretty directly in his work as an importer. Well, too bad. Too damn bad. Still, he said he doesn't think booing is the right thing to do in this particular situation. And frankly, it has nothing to do with anything good for the United States. And let's face it, if people don't like it, they're going to have to deal with it one way or another. And this is just what happens, folks. All you're really going to have to do is tolerate what's going on in the grand scheme of things, because really, as we look at it, we say, all right, fine. As Americans, we have to make sure that we protect ourselves. And if we don't protect ourselves, well, what's going to happen? Well, guess what? As the world's policeman, let's look at it that way. The United States seems to be the world's policeman. Well, what are we going to have to do? We, as Americans, are going to have to stand our ground. And if we stand our ground, well, what does that mean? We're not going to do anything but exactly what we're supposed to do. And you know what's really interesting, folks? So I'm doing a live Facebook for everybody on Chicago Food Favorites. And because this topic came up, they say there's no censorship and all this other crap. Well, what I find interesting is that the video came to an abrupt end with no buttons to push, no nothing, no anything. We didn't do anything on our side, and we have a perfect connection. And so we have that 10 meg pipe or whatever the heck is, the 100 gigs or whatever. We have the most throughput that you can actually purchase through your cable provider. Well, and guess what? Conveniently, in my opinion, I believe that the censorship people at Facebook didn't like the content that we're talking about right here because of the booing of the anthem. Hey, this is a part of sports, folks. This is a sports entertainment show, and guess what? We do talk business from time to time. But I find it very peculiar that Facebook abruptly stopped the video. Oh, we're updating right now. No, you're not, because on my other device here, it's not updating anything. How convenient is that? So the censorship is still there, folks, in case you think it isn't. I don't care what side you voted for or if at all. Actually, I really do care. But the reality is we should not be censored. That's a violation of our First Amendment rights. And if this radio station that you're listening to or a TV station, if they censor the content, then they're violating what? Our First Amendment rights as well. If you don't know anything about our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, you don't know anything about the First Amendment, you better read about it, folks, because what's going on right now is absolutely wrong. We'll be back here in a few minutes on the circus. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at
714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Could you use a little extra money right now? If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UppercutChops.com or call
714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
or make your selection directly at Uppercut Chops. thesportscircus.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment is brought to you in part by the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's csncoyotes.com for the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. All right. All right, a big welcome in to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast, including our friends from Honolulu on CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's home of the New York Yankees, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Welcome in to everybody else up and down the West Coast on our independents and affiliates, as well as throughout the Heartland, and everybody on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, WOW Cable Television affiliates, and Spectrum as well. Thanks for joining us also on Chicago Food Favorites. Check out Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Lots of laughs over there. Great restaurants, great recipes, all kinds of good things and good people over there. Listen, it's a fun group. Join the group, have some fun, and participate as well. All right. You know, interestingly, in the last segment, we were running a live feed on the Chicago Food Favorites page. We're going to pick up with this where we left off. And that was a tribute to the page. There's a couple thousand people thereabouts, maybe a little bit less, that participate in that page. And they like to have the show broadcast on there, at least from the audio standpoint. So we try to do that. And what we have found is it appears that there is a censorship bit going on. And now the censorship piece, which I find a little troubling, what I don't understand is how in the world they can actually get away, they being the powers that be, I suppose, get away with the whole censorship idea when, well, quite honestly, there should be no issue with censorship whatsoever. And this seems to be what's going on. So it seems like those people that control a lot of different aspects, I suppose, of the streaming media for social media and whatnot, it seems as though there is something going on that's a little bit funky, and I'm not really sure what's going on with that. But what I'm finding is that people are not getting the content that they should be getting. And so as I see it, it just seems a little awkward. And I'm not really sure why that's going on, but this is what's going on. And so ultimately, folks, we think of censorship and we say, well, why do we have censorship issues? I'm not really sure about that. But what I am sure of is that it sure seems quite possible that somebody doesn't want us to say anything in particular when it comes to this Canada-U.S. thing, because yes, it's a sports thing. It's a sports story for hockey and basketball. I wonder what's going to happen with Major League Baseball games. And well, I mean, that's a really big deal. Now, we don't have any cross-the-border college basketball games, but we certainly will have them for baseball. Is this going to continue with the booing of the U.S. national anthem? I don't really know what's going on with that, but I'll tell you what, this is what's going on in the NBA. This is what's going on in the NHL when the American teams are playing over there, being on the northern side of the border, and it's not right. And believe me, the booing really is on the fans and their lack of knowledge. How do you like that? That's right, folks. That's disgusting. Anyhow, speaking of college basketball, moving on to that, of course, we have our new news, and we have all kinds of things going on in the NBA and the WNBA, but guess what? The college basketball is really front and center right now. And you know why it's front and center? Let's think about this. What's going on in the betting world, right? We've seen a lot of questionable calls, as we've seen in football. Hell, I probably won't even watch the Super Bowl because I already know that Kansas City's going to win this game. They'll get their three-peat, and who knows, probably at some point it'll be the Taylor Swift of the world and the Travis Kelce in the world probably having some kind of relational problem, whatever, I don't know. But what'll probably happen is they'll probably break up or something. And guess what? That whole run will be over because the story will be over of this three-peat thing. And then it'll be time for another football team to take center stage. Maybe it'll be the Bengals. Maybe it'll be the Buffalo Bills. Maybe it'll be Detroit. I don't know. Well, guess what? There's a lot of money floating around out there. And how about this? How about multiple college basketball programs are linked to federal investigation amid NBA gambling ring probes? That's right, folks. It's even trickled down here. The investigation is the same one that started with former Raptors player Jonte Porter. Another beauty. That's right. So the federal investigation into a gambling ring over its involvement with a pair of NBA betting cases has been linked to unusual betting activity with at least 3 men's college basketball programs, according to the four-letter network. Now, the investigation, which started with former Toronto Raptors player Jonte Porter, has since expanded to involve longtime guard Terry Rozier and has expanded to the college level. At least 3 programs, NCAA, Mississippi Valley State, a couple of HBCUs, and Eastern Michigan University are now connected. What are we talking about here, folks? This is pretty earth-shattering stuff, I guess. I don't really even know what to say right now because, look, this is really bad. Folks, this is really bad. According to the report, a pair of games this season involving Eastern Michigan were flagged due to unusual activity in both games. First against Wright State on December 21st, and again on January 16th against Central Michigan. Sports books noticed suspicious activity in betting against the Eagles in the first half. Similar trends were spotted in a January 9th game with North Carolina A&T and Delaware. Delaware, of course, famous for that guy, Joe Biden. That's right. I boot it because I can. Anyway, further specifics on the allegations or who from the 3 programs may be involved are still unknown. The 3 programs did not respond to the four-letter network's request to comment, though NCAA, North Carolina A&T, confirmed that it suspended 3 players recently due to violations of, quote, well-established team rules, close quote. It's unclear that if that's involved with gambling allegations or not. So the NCAA said in a statement to the four-letter network, quote, the NCAA takes sport betting very seriously and is committed to the protection of student athletes' well-being and the integrity of competition. The association works with the integrity monitoring services, state regulators, and other stakeholders to conduct appropriate due diligence whenever suspicious reports are received. Due to confidentiality rules put in place by the NCAA, member schools, the NCAA will not comment on current or potential investigations. That's right. That's because they're going to get exposed. That's right. That's what's going on. Now, Porter pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud for his role in the gambling scandal last year, which resulted in him being permanently banned from the NBA. Porter is the brother of Denver Nuggets star Michael Porter Jr. 5 men were charged with conspiring with Porter. 3 of them have already pled guilty, and 2 others are in plea negotiations per the report. Now, Rozier, who is currently with the Miami Heat, is the subject of an investigation as part of the probe. Though the NBA said it conducts its own investigation and did not find a violation. Well, that's kind of convenient, isn't it? The incident stems from a 2023 game when he was with the Charlotte Hornets and left after 10 minutes with a foot injury. The investigation is also looking at potential point-shaving incidents with former Temple player Heiser Miller, who allegedly bet on games that he had played in last season. There it is, folks. Oh, and it only gets worse. Because when you have bad teams and you know they don't really have anything at stake, like, for example, North Carolina A&T, they currently hold a 4-19 record heading into their next game against Charleston at Charleston, and the Aggies have lost 9 straight games. Then we go to Mississippi Valley. They sit at 3-19, another HBCU. Though the Delta Devils just snapped a 12-game losing skid with a win over Arkansas Pine Bluff, Eastern Michigan sits 1 game under 500 at 10-11 headed into their game against Kent State. They're not going to be making the big dance, folks. It is what it is. So these are the games that certainly can be compromised. Whether they are compromised, we don't know. But that's why we have this investigation. And folks, this stinks to high heaven. What an awful situation. Now you've got this gambling issue spilling over into college basketball right at the forefront. A couple of HBCUs, a Mid-American Conference team. What the hell is going on? Back here in a few minutes on the Circus. Don't go anywhere. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime, nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hello Americans, it's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time. That's 800-950-2049.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
That's ridiculous.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's the College of Southern Nevada Athletics, csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. All right, welcome back to everybody that's just tuning in right now. You know, we've had some technical issues, but we are rolling again for everybody streaming on Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook and some of our other streaming affiliates. Sorry about the technical issues. There's nothing we could do about that. Seems like somebody didn't like the idea that we were talking about tariffs and Canada and Mexico and all that stuff because it did relate to sports, and it was about booing of the national anthem from Canadians to, yes, the American teams. I mean, just not cool because the Americans don't boo the "Oh Canada" whenever it's played. I mean, anyway. And then, of course, in case you missed it, folks, you're just tuning in again, we had, yes, multiple college basketball programs linked to a federal investigation for gambling. And those, of course, were North Carolina A&T, North Carolina A&T, and it was also Mississippi Valley State, a couple of HBCUs, and Eastern Michigan from the Mid-American Conference. So all that said, yes, just catching you up. If you missed any part of this, go back to Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, or, we're on all of them, iHeartRadio, and et cetera and so forth. Just pull up this episode, and you'll be able to catch up on anything that you missed. All right, sticking with college basketball, those rankings have been moving around a little bit, so much, and we have those that we're going to start at the bottom with those receiving votes because, look, not every team that is in the rankings actually gets the right votes, or they really don't get the love that they should. But let's face it, we can't go through all of them, but we will start at the bottom at number 25 and work our way up. I tell you, it's been a very interesting time for college hoops, and now it's kind of like the contenders and pretenders are starting to show their faces. Number 25, dropping 2 slots to number 25, is Ole Miss. Ole Miss, of course, with that loss to Auburn, really didn't hurt themselves much because Auburn is ranked number 1, and we'll get to those guys in a minute. That's for everybody over there on WAUD. Now, up next for Ole Miss is Kentucky. That's coming up later today. Michigan remains number 24. They had a 3-point win at home against Rutgers. Michigan's not that good, but they're good enough to get the top 25. Up next to them is Oregon, and that should be tomorrow's game. Illinois drops 5 slots to number 23. Up next for Illinois is at Rutgers. Mississippi State, a big drop. They lost 8 spots in the rankings. I think that's the biggest drop of everybody. And they were absolutely destroyed at Missouri, 88-61. Up next to them is Georgia. It doesn't really get too much easier. Wisconsin drops 4 slots to number 21 with their latest win, of course, against Northwestern, 75-69. Up next for them is Indiana. They're going to have their hands full with Indiana, a very good squad, underrated. Arizona remains unchanged at number 20. Up next for Arizona is at Brigham Young. UConn jumps up 6 slots. And they got themselves a nice road win against Marquette and Shaka Smart. Boy, that is a very good Marquette team. Of course, they tumbled a little bit in the rankings as well. We'll get to them in a minute. Up next for UConn is St. John's at home. Maryland remains unchanged at number 18. And up next for them is Ohio State. Coming up at number 17, up 2 slots, is Memphis, the Tigers. They had a nice win against Rice, 86-83. Up next for them are the Golden Hurricanes of Tulsa. Kansas drops 5. Up next for Kansas, they're at number 16, is Kansas State, but there's that state rivalry. That's always a fun one. Missouri, of course, with their big win against Miss State, jumps up 5 slots to number 15. They're at 17-4 overall now. Up next for them is a very tough Tennessee team, and that's going to be at Knoxville. Kentucky drops 2 slots to number 14, and they had an ugly game at Arkansas. It was a 10-point game, but it sure looked like it was about a 50-point game. Up next for them is Ole Miss. Texas Tech up 9 spots to number 13. That's a huge jump with their win against Houston. Texas Tech has Baylor next. St. John's goes up 3 to number 12. Up next for them is Marquette. And boy, they're going to be bent out of shape from their last loss. Marquette, speaking of them, they dropped only 2 slots with their loss against UConn. And up next to them, as I just mentioned, is St. John. Texas A&M and the top 10, they're up 3 spots to number 10 at 17-5 overall. Up next for them is Missouri, who just crushed their opponent. That was ugly. Michigan State drops 2 slots with their loss against USC, and that was at Michigan State. Up next for Michigan State is UCLA. Iowa State drops 5 slots in the top 10. They dropped to number 8 with their ugly loss to Kansas, and it was a good old-fashioned ass-whooping. It was a 17-point loss. Up next for them is TCU. Purdue jumps up 3 to number 7 with their nice win at Indiana. Up next for them is Iowa. Florida drops 1 to number 6, 18-3 overall, and they lost by 20 to Tennessee. Up next for them is Vanderbilt. Doesn't get any easier. Houston goes up 1 slot, and up next for them, they're number 5, is Oklahoma State. As I mentioned, Tennessee and Missouri are going to square off, and that one is tomorrow. Boy, that's going to be one hell of a game there. Alabama goes up to number 3, up 1 slot with their gigantic win at Georgia. They beat them by 21 on the road. Up next for Alabama is Arkansas, and that's going to be on Saturday. The Duke Blue Devils, yes! They go up? No. They go down? No. They stay the same at number 2 in the nation. Cooper Flagg and company absolutely destroyed Carolina. And I've got to tell you, folks, that in itself deserves an astounding round of applause. Absolutely. The Duke Blue Devils at number 2 getting 1,488 points in the voting. And they are right behind, oh, by the way, up next to them is Syracuse, right behind the number 1 ranked Auburn Tigers. And, you know, Auburn has been consistent most of the year. And Auburn has, they have a broken Coke machine next. They play Oklahoma. Auburn is going to remain number 1 probably through the week. But, you know, you have to look at this and say, all right, why are these teams this good and this, that, and the other? Well, look, we have to go over to these power rankings, the power index. And when you look at these numbers, it kind of makes a little bit of sense. So when you say this overall basketball power index, the Houston Cougars are just a click above Duke at 24.4 to 23.9, and Auburn is at 23. These are the 3 best teams in America according to this power index. So BPI ranking, of course, has those 3, 1, 2, and 3. And then when we talk about the BPI offensive measures, right? So the measures a team's offense, their strength compared to an average offense on a scale of points of 70 possessions. Well, look, if we're going to rank these teams from an offensive standpoint according to their power index, well, what are we looking at, folks? We're looking at the teams from the rankings. And guess what? Auburn is ranked number 1 in the AP. Well, guess what? Even in the power index, they're ranked number 1 as well. Their offense at 13.3, and Duke being ranked number 2, they're also number 2 in the power index at 12.6. Now, Houston is a little bit down the trough, but when you look at the 1 and 2, they're down to about 8th in the power rankings. But these are the teams that belong there. So offensively, the teams that are ranked 1 and 2, well, guess what? They're also ranked 1 and 2. But it's a little bit different story here when it comes to defense. Now, Houston is ranked number 1 in defense according to the power rankings at 13.8. Tennessee, a very good defensive squad at 11.3. And Duke is number 3 in the defensive power rankings. So people will say, well, you know, Duke gets a lot of extra love and all this other crap. guess what? These guys are good offensively and defensively. There's no mistake here. They are that good. And Auburn in the defensive power rank is ranked number 7. But it's a substantial drop-off below the Houston Cougars, which at number 1 at 13.8 to Auburn's 9.7. That's a significant difference. But it is Auburn's offensive numbers that show the way for the number 1 team in the nation. And again, Duke is 2 and 3 in power on offense and defense. And they're exactly where they belong. So the rankings are pretty accurate, folks. When you look also at the, let's clear our throats on this one, the remaining strength of schedule, because that is also an issue, if you know what I mean. Have to let the applause play out on that one. So the remaining strength of schedule. So who has the tough teams to play left? So they're probably going to maybe drop in the rankings or whatnot. And think about this. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams, 6 teams, 7 teams. The top 7 teams for remaining strength of schedule are all in the Southeast Conference. And even the 9th team is in the Southeast Conference. The 19th, by the way, is Auburn. But you have Alabama, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, South Carolina, LSU. Then you have a Big Ten team in Michigan State, I should say. Then Auburn, and then the Big 12 jumps in with Arizona and Colorado. And then back to the SEC with Arkansas, followed by Illinois in the Big Ten, and then SEC, and Texas A&M, Missouri. So what they're trying to say is, look, the remaining strength of schedule in the SEC is really tough, but that doesn't really show that they are the best in all the other conferences either. It's kind of interesting how this dynamic works. Back here in a few minutes with College Hoops. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Folks, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for upcoming guests, our prior guests, or recorded shows, which can be found on Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify. Oh, geez, where else are we? iHeartRadio. We're also on... We were on Pandora, and also that was taken over by another organization. Pick your favorite one, Stitcher, Deezer. We're on all of those. It's crazy to the amount of outlets that we have. Also, lots and lots of viewers. So maybe you might want to, I don't know, consider contacting the Sports Circus for advertising your product, your service for your company. Lots and lots of impressions, up to 4 million a month. Some crazy number. But ultimately, folks, this is a long-running show. We've been on the air for over 2,100 episodes since 2016 and still going strong. All right, also a big welcome into everybody on Chicago Food Favorites. We've had some technical issues on and off there. Thanks for joining us and sticking with us. And that is Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Folks, if you don't know what that is, check that out on Facebook, Chicago Food Favorites, for your favorite foods and your favorite recipes. And you don't have to be in Chicagoland. You can be anywhere, all four corners of the earth, just like the flat earthers are saying out there. Well, guess what, folks? I mean, look, that's a whole nother discussion for another time. But what I will say is that this is a very widespread group. Nearly a couple of thousand people participate from all over the world. Lots of fun. And make sure you check it out, Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. All right. So College Hoops went over the rankings, and, you know, there's that big dance thing coming up real soon. March Madness is coming up, which we love March Madness. And the teams that are supposed to be there are going to be there. Your top 10 teams that absolutely belong there. I don't know about the top 25. Some of them you scratch your head and say, well, yeah, are they really that good? Big question is, let's take a look at the bracket watch. According to the Four Letter Network, top overall seed right now, of course, is Auburn. Auburn showing the way. They're playing really good ball. First team out, it might be Central Florida, according to those guys. And the last team in could be Nebraska. So the term mid-major is thrown around these days in a, I don't know, kind of loosely. I'm not really sure. It's really in a way that it's intended, but programs outside the Power Four plus the Big East get the label no matter how many private jets they have or football tickets they sell. Memphis, San Diego State, Dayton, Gonzaga, nothing mid about those clubs, that's for sure. And the other AAC for the Atlantic or American Athletic Conference, the Atlantic 10, the Mountain West, they level programs. And look, they will rebel once they start sharing revenues with student athletes with this nonsensical NIL thing, like those other generous, allegedly, if you will, and I'll say, show me the money! Yeah, so what they're saying is, hey, look, once you start showing some money, you may get more teams in these tournaments and this, that, which is complete nonsense. So you want to call the power conferences high majors and then the next tier majors? Maybe that's kind of how it works right now. Calling them mid isn't just inaccurate. It's sort of a disservice to the program that they truly are in the first place. Indeed, that moniker at best, whatever, mid-major, is the country's schools like the St. Mary's of the world. And St. Mary's, that's a quality school and a quality basketball program over there. The Gales have been best in class for quite some time. I mean, 3 straight 5 seeds, 3 wins in the past 2 seasons over Gonzaga, and half a dozen NCAA bids over the last 8 years. And those guys are legit. That's right. So those would be elite results, but I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 dozen schools out of all the others. I don't know, if you want to watch the Gales score the first 26 points of the second half at Santa Clara, like in last week's game, you might even circle St. Mary's on your bracket. maybe the next time you fill one out. So Randy Bennett hasn't reached the second weekend since 2010 in the tournament, but this year's team is a very good squad, and they might be good enough. So let's face it, no one checks your label in the NCAA tournament, so just watch out. Now, those teams that are said to be on the bubble right now, according to the Four Letter Network, the last 4 byes are Utah State, Ohio State, Vanderbilt, and Georgia. Now, the last 4 in, according to ESPN, is San Diego State, Brigham Young, Pittsburgh, and Nebraska. The first 4 out, this is the one that really shakes a lot of people up. And, I mean, look, there's a lot of basketball to be played yet. So it would be Central Florida, Xavier, Arizona State, and USC. Now, I can't even imagine Xavier being in one of the first 4 out because they just seem to be perennial tournament clubs in the first place. They're constantly there. How about the next 4 out? Wake Forest. You scratch your head with that one. Southern Methodist, SMU. North Carolina, of course, that always deserves a round of applause from this show. And Arkansas. And Arkansas, what a conundrum. How could they be one of the first or the next 4 out? Not really sure how that one works. So you have this projected bracket right now, and you say, well, it's a little early for it, but I don't know. Is it? Over in the South region, Alabama, or better yet, that's a minor mistake. In the South region, it would be Auburn, possibly facing Omaha or Morehead State. Don't really know. And at the other side of that bracket is Creighton against either Gonzaga or another club. So we're talking 8-9 matchup with Creighton and Gonzaga. In Seattle, in the first round, in the South bracket would be Arizona and McNeese as projected. And then at the 4-13 matchup would be Memphis and Grand Canyon. Now in Providence, in the bottom half of the bracket, for the first round of the South bracket, it would be St. John's and San Diego State and, or better yet, or Nebraska. The 3-14 matchup would have Kentucky and Cleveland State. That's right, Cleveland State. In the bottom of the bracket would be Mississippi State and Utah, and the winner would play Houston or Norfolk State. That's the South region. Over the Midwest region, right now, the Four Letter Network has Alabama as the 1 seed. They would square off against Southern. Then St. Mary's and Oklahoma, the winner of that one would play the winner of the Alabama-Southern game. Over in Seattle, in the Midwestern, yes, Seattle, in the Midwestern bracket, would have Illinois and Yale. That's the 5-12 matchup. Texas Tech and Samford at the 4-13. Now, at the bottom half of that Midwestern bracket, it would be currently Maryland and Drake at 6-11 and Marquette and Jacksonville State at 3-14. At the bottom of that bracket, Milwaukee would have Louisville and Vanderbilt. That'd be a good one. And Purdue and Bryant. So I guess they're looking at Purdue and Vanderbilt eventually trying to square off with Alabama. Now, over in the West region, this is a very interesting region for a lot of reasons, but there might be some early exits here. Tennessee and Central Connecticut, that should be an easy one for Tennessee. And Clemson and West Virginia, you could see a second-round upset there because West Virginia, boy, you never know what you're going to get. But think about this one. You've got a very good Missouri squad at a 5 against UC Irvine, the Anteaters. Now, don't count those guys out. UC Irvine plays really good ball. At the bottom of that bracket in Denver in the first round in the West region would be Wisconsin and Arkansas State. So maybe it could be Missouri and Arkansas State or UC Irvine and Wisconsin. That can go either way. The bottom half of the West bracket would feature Oregon against either BYU or Pitt and Texas A&M versus Colorado State. And the bottom of the bracket has 2-time defending champion UConn against Ohio State. And then Iowa State and Florida Gulf Coast. Interesting. So you could see an upset in that Milwaukee regional first-round matchup setup. It could be Ohio State, UConn, Iowa State, or even Florida Gulf Coast. Any of those teams could come out of that Milwaukee region. Over in the East, over the East region, they have Duke as the number 1 ranked club. That's right. Duke always gets a round of applause here. Squaring off against either Marist or American. And the winner of that game would be against Baylor or Texas. And that's in Raleigh. So that's a home game for Duke. Over in Providence in the East region, first round would have Ole Miss against George Mason. And the bottom of the bracket, the 4-13 game, would have Michigan State and Akron, likely Ole Miss to play Duke in the Sweet 16. Now, in the Denver region of the first round, for the East region, I should say, in the Denver games, it would have UCLA and Georgia and Kansas and Towson. Kansas being the 3, UCLA being the 6. The bottom of the bracket would have Michigan, which is laughable, against New Mexico. New Mexico should roll over Michigan. And Florida, a very good Florida squad against NC Asheville. So they're looking to have possibly Florida and Duke match up in the Elite Eight. I think that's kind of where they're going with this one. So look, the brackets are the brackets, folks. And this is too early to tell, but we've got enough data right now to see what we're looking at. And right now, we're seeing 13 teams from the Southeast Conference in the tournament. 10 Big Ten teams. So you think, geez, there's 10 teams, Big Ten, there's only 10. No. There's a hell of a lot more. And the Big 12, which actually is more than 12 teams, they would have 8 teams going into the tournament. The ACC would have 4. The Big East would have 4. The Mountain West would have 3. And the West Coast Conference, how do you like that? The West Coast Conference would have 2. So who's in the West Coast Conference? Oh, that's right. Team by the, that would be Gonzaga. Gonzaga, and you'd also see St. Mary's. Those are the 2 teams from the West Coast Conference. It seems like they're always in there. And, they have the West Coast Conference tournament is played right here in Las Vegas over at the Orleans Hotel. Folks, if you want to see some really good college basketball, come out to the Orleans. There's no plug for this. We're not getting anything. We're not getting free tickets for this. I'm just telling you, going to these games, going to the tournament, you have a very good matchup. Better yet, a good set of matchups for the West Coast Conference in their tournament. Now, also, the Mountain West plays their tournament, if I'm not mistaken, in San Diego. And the Pac-12 used to play here, but, of course, now we have a Pac-2, so that doesn't even count. And those teams aren't even good enough, being Oregon State or Washington State, to participate. But I have to tell you, folks, there's some really good basketball played right here in Las Vegas. And I believe the Mountain West tournament does revolve. And if I'm not mistaken, it was here in Las Vegas recently. Not sure if it's going to be back here. It probably should anyway. But all things said, you've got a lot of good squads in different conferences. I'm not so sure 13 teams from the SEC make it in. 10 teams from the Big Ten, they very well could make it in. 8 from the Big 12, probably. The ACC, probably the 4. Big East, most definitely the 4. And the West Coast, absolutely the 2. But I'll tell you what, folks, college basketball, March Madness is coming. And guess what? We're going to have lots of coverage for March Madness. And that's going to do it for the circus today. I'm your Remaster Sal. We'll see you in 23 hours right here on your favorite station. So until then, don't have your free speech curtailed by anybody. And you know who you are that did it to the show today. We'll see you in 23 hours. So long, everyone.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.